Static in the stacks. The fluorescent tubes overhead hummed at 60 hertz, a relentless, insect-like buzz that had long since faded into the background of Maya's mind. Concrete walls closed in around her in the subterranean archive of the Coastal Historical Society, where the air smelled thick and sour-sweet with degrading magnetic tape and damp paper. Outside, a nor'easter clawed at the main coast, rain hammering the locked building above. Down here, the only weather was the slow, quiet decay of history. Maya pulled her heavy noise-canceling headphones over her ears and threaded tape 13 onto the reel deck. 12 tapes down, 3 left in the box, marked Deep Sub-Ledge Research, 1984. Contract work. Low pay, perfect for someone who preferred the company of dead voices to living ones. She leveled the input, watched the VU meters bounce gently, and hit record to start the transfer. The marine biologist's voice on the tape was flat and clinical. Bordering on board, water, temperatures, tidal pool, sediment samples, soft tape hiss filled the pauses between his sentences like distant ocean static. Maya's pen moved across her log sheet in practiced rhythmic strokes. Routine was a kind of armor. Isolation was another. Midway through the reel, the biologist stopped talking. The background static swelled, not louder. Exactly, just thicker, heavier. Then came the sound of footsteps on concrete, slow, deliberate. They carried the exact cadence of the steps Maya had taken when she entered the room 20 minutes ago. She paused the tape and lifted one ear cup. The archive was dead silent, save for the fluorescent hum and the muffled roar of the storm upstairs. She rewound and listened to the recorded footsteps again, counted them, checked them against the memory of her own stride. Same slight drag on the left heel, same rhythm. A coincidence, she thought? Audio bleed from an earlier recording. Old magnetic tape did strange things. She whispered the excuse to herself and hit play. The biologist's voice didn't come back. A different voice took its place, flat and strangely mechanical, like someone speaking through a cheap vocoder. She was about to drop her pen. Maya's hand twitched. The pen slipped from her fingers, clattered off the edge of the desk, and clicked once against the concrete floor. 2 seconds later, the tape played the exact same click. She stared at the spinning reels, watching the VU meters dance. Her own heart was pounding now, a wet, heavy thud that echoed inside her headphones. She rewound the tape and played that section again. The voice still predicted the drop. The click still followed, perfectly timed. Maya sat frozen. The lights buzzed over her head. Somewhere inside the walls, a pipe clanked as the building shifted. She tried to tell herself it was a prank, some elaborate audio edit buried in the archive years ago. She tried to believe that, but she kept listening anyway, because the alternative was too terrifying to face. The mechanical voice spoke again, calm and unnervingly precise. Do not turn around. The door behind you is open 3 inches. Maya's back went rigid. She didn't turn. Instead, she stared at the dark reflection on her computer monitor. The heavy fire door, which she had personally deadbolted when she arrived, was sitting ajar. Beyond it lay total darkness. The kind of black that seemed to swallow the light from the room. Her mouth went completely dry. She reached out for the deck's power switch. The voice cut in, now carrying a faint, horribly familiar ring. If you cut the power, it will only move closer. Sound does not need electricity. Sound only needs a medium. Her hand froze. She left the power on. The voice kept talking, shifting, and stitching itself together. out of fragments of her own breathing and biologist's flat monotone. You are going to stand up now. You are going to try to leave. When you do, the pressure will change. Maya stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. She grabbed her bag. Suddenly, an ear-splitting burst of feedback shot through the headphones, piercing straight into the back of her skull. A sudden spike of heat boomed in her left nostril, and blood dripped onto her lip. She staggered, clutching her face with one hand, and her bag strapped with the other. The tape began speaking in her own voice, delayed by half a second, as if it were a recording from a future that had already happened. If you open the exterior door, the pressure drops. That's when it comes through. Understanding hit her like a physical blow. The tape wasn't playing a recording of the past. It was mapping out what was happening right now, folding her present actions back into a loop of magnetic film. Every sound she made fed it. Every hesitation gave it more to work with. Maya reached out and yanked the power cord from the deck. The audio didn't stop. It bled directly into her headphones, even with the deck completely dead. She ripped them off and threw them across the room. The sound kept going anyway, softer now, coming from the dark doorway behind her. A low whisper. It was the sound of her own breathing, recorded and played back, half a second behind, slowly catching up to her. She turned around. The hallway was still pitch black, but two cassette boxes were sitting neatly on the concrete floor just past the threshold, right where no one had left them. Tapes 14 and 15, the missing ones from the set, waiting for her. If she wanted to survive this, she was going to have to step into the dark. Maya forced her feet forward, every footfall feeling like a terrible mistake. The whispering breath in the hallway mirrored her own. Half a second behind, then right in sync, then pulling ahead. She lunged forward, snatched tape 15, scrambled back into the room, and slammed the fire door shut. She threw the deadbolt with trembling hands. The heavy metal clack echoed back from the other side of the door, softer, almost playful. She loaded the final tape into the deck, her own panicked gasps filling the room first. Gasps she hadn't even made yet. Then came the sound of something heavy and metallic dragging across concrete, and then silence. Absolute digital silence. The kind that makes your ears ring from the sheer absence of sound. A new instruction came through the speakers, back to that flat mechanical tone from the start. Silence is the only blind spot. Stop breathing for 60 seconds. Maya looked back at the fire door. The air around the frame had begun to shimmer, like heat rising off asphalt on a summer day, except the distortion was made entirely of sound. Ripples of pressure making the dust motes in the air tremble and dance. It had no face, no body. It was just a presence. A hungry thing that hunted by vibration. It pushed through the door and entered the room. Maya clamped both hands over her mouth and nose, trapping the air in her lungs until her chest began to burn. The distortion drifted forward, following the lingering echoes of earlier steps. It paused near the chair she had knocked back. It hovered over the exact spot where her pin had dropped. Then, slowly, it turned toward the desk. On the unpowered reel-to-reel deck, the VU meters suddenly spiked into the red, pinning hard against the glass. The distortion drifted closer, drawn by the residual charge, by the ghost of sound trapped in the static. Maya's vision started to narrow. Her lungs were screaming for air. 50 seconds. 55. The shimmer passed inches from her space, close enough that she could feel the air molecules pressing against her skin, like the heavy lull right before a thunderclap. 60. She let out her breath in a slow, silent stream through her nose. The distortion passed right by her, drawn toward the deck. It touched the open reels. The VU meter slammed so hard the needles bent. Then with a sudden jerk, the shimmer collapsed inward, sucked straight into the magnetic tapes like water down a drain. The reel spun wildly for a second, then ground to a halt. The meters dropped back to 0. Real silence returned, broken only by the hum of the lights in the storm far above. Maya didn't stay to check. She was already out the fire door, down the black hallway, and taking the stairs 3 at a time. She burst into the storm without her coat, her bag, or any of the gear she'd spent all evening setting up. Rain soaked her to the bone in seconds. The wind nearly knocked her off her feet. She didn't look back at the Historical Society. She just ran until she hit the coastal highway, where a late-night gas station offered fluorescent lights, safety, and the comfort of ordinary static of a radio playing classic rock. Months later, in a new city, far away from the coast, Maya opened an email from a former coworker. "Hey, found a corrupted file from your last archive dump. Can you listen to this 5-second clip and tell me if it's your voice?" She stared at the attachment for a long time. Outside her window, the city was alive, with comforting, ordinary noise, traffic, distant voices, sirens, normal sounds, safe sounds. She didn't open the file, but late that night, when the apartment was dead silent and the room was only lit by the street lamps outside, she thought she heard, just at the edge of hearing, the faint, soft hiss of magnetic tape beginning to spin. Final thoughts. That was a pretty solid story. I've been thinking about creating this channel for a while, and this is what I came up with. If you've watched this far, thank you. And if you enjoyed and you'd like to see or hear more scary content, feel free to smack the like button, hug the subscribe button, and gently tap that notification bell, because these will be coming in hot.